An insider reveals the leaked cast list for Avengers Kang Dynasty. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Cosmic Culture, the channel where we talk all things major movie and television news, theories, breakdowns, and much more. I'm your host Chris, and we're going to have to jump right into it because we have this massive roster today. Coming from Insider Great Phase on Twitter, of characters who are locked in for the Kang Dynasty, highly probable, more likely than not, and questionable, which means they've had conversations about including them and or are working on character contracts. So we'll cover the entire list in each category specifically and talk about what that might mean for Avengers Kang Dynasty, which, keep in mind, is the first Avengers movie since Avengers Endgame. But first, let's get the necessary, required YouTube administrative stuff out of the way. Like the video if you haven't, it helps out the analytics a lot. Consider subscribing and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our other daily uploads. And you can also follow me on my other socials, Instagram at Chris M. Rosser and Twitter at TheCultureChris. And the last one is an important one, it's a fun one. Go down to the comment section at some point during this video and let me know one character that you 100% have to see in Avengers Kang Dynasty. There's a long list here, so odds are they're going to be on it. But with the new standard for the MCU as a whole, when we go back to the original times where Iron Man had his movie and there were a couple references, nods, and Easter eggs, and then the same thing happened in Thor, Captain America. All these movies happened individually with one character and then somebody named a character or referenced something happening in the other side of the world. That was the big connection back in the day. We had these little connections, kind of like what we're seeing in the Disney Plus series now, but we're all considering that the Disney Plus series aren't well enough connected. That's a major complaint we've been hearing. And then back then, Avengers would all come together for an Avengers film, and then we got things like Civil War, team-up movies like Ragnarok, and then the big Endgame moment, Infinity War and Endgame, where everybody was there in the big portal scene. Okay, so with that information, let's now move into Phase 4, 5, and 6, where Avengers movies are going to be Endgame level movies. A lot of movies, like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, have team-up moments and big effects. Then you have the shows, which are going to be more individual, showing origin stories and telling about that character. So big blockbuster movies, team-ups. Thor Love and Thunder had the Guardians of the Galaxy in it. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness had a lot of different characters in it, and so on and so forth. So those have more of a team-up feel to it, and then we have the shows. And then we have the Avengers movie. And now we'll get into this extremely massive list of potential characters and locked-in characters for Kang Dynasty. So starting at the top of the list, we have 100% locked. It says Kang the Conqueror, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, Sam Wilson, Shang-Chi, Monica Rambeau, Kamala Khan, Nick Fury, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, Ben Grimm, and Loki. So that's the list of characters that are 100% locked in according to the Insider Great Phase on Twitter. And with this information, what do we see? Well, the Fantastic Four, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel following the Marvels and their potential connection to Shang-Chi, who's also locked in the 10 Rings through the Bangles. So we're seeing the skeleton of the connections here just based off of this list. Of course, Kang the Conqueror, which is the cherry on the very top of the Avengers Kang Dynasty pie, and we're very excited to see his character in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. However many times we might end up seeing the character, since the whole point of Kang is multiversal travel, variants, and I'm very excited for that. But we need to move on to the highly probable list. Now there's several reasons why these characters might not be locked in just yet. One, writing is not done for this movie. They might still be deciding what direction and what characters they need, what the skeletal spine of the MCU up to this point needs to have happen in order to introduce these characters, or even something as simple as actors' contracts, like how we've heard with Chris Hemsworth, how he might be stepping away from acting due to some health things that he's discovered while filming Limitless for Disney+. So if he's not willing to act because of health reasons, well, they're not really going to be able to have Thor in this movie, so they're going to have to rewrite that. That's it for instance, but let's go through the highly probable list. Thor, She-Hulk, Hulk, Clea, America Chavez, Ant-Man, Wasp, Cassie Lang, Kate Bishop, War Machine, Wong, Shuri, Riri Williams, Yelena Belova, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Sylvie, and Mobius. So with the locked in characters, we kind of got that skeleton of what story we need to follow with the Fantastic Four, with Doctor Strange, the Marvels with the bangle, Shang-Chi with the 10 rings, all of these different items that somehow are going to connect to Kang, and storylines that will connect to Kang. Well, in this list, the highly probable list, we continue to see kind of the other half of that. We have Thor, we have the She-Hulk and Hulk storylines, and then you have Clea, which is the backside of Doctor Strange, America Chavez, which is the same, Ant-Man and the Wasp, who are about to meet Kang for the first time, War Machine, who we're waiting for the Iron Horse movie, Wong, which is again that backside of Doctor Strange, Shuri, Riri Williams, Black Panther, huge connection there, Yelena Belova, the Thunderbolts, Spider-Man, he's Spider-Man, of course we want Spider-Man there, and the word is that we're working on finishing off the 6-movie deal with Tom Holland, which once that was to get signed, he would probably be moved to the locked-in list, but since it's not signed yet, he's on the highly probable. We also have Sylvie and Mobius. So based off of the characters on the highly probable list, I'm going to say the majority of them are here for one of two reasons. One, they haven't signed off their actor to play the role just yet. They have to figure out how that all works with the budget and with scheduling. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that's probably very complicated to figure out. The other thing that might be holding some of these characters back is their destiny might not be yet determined by the writing for the remaining of phases 5 and 6 until we get to Kang Dynasty. Meaning, we don't know if America Chavez is gonna die, or if Yelena Belova is gonna die. We don't know necessarily what's gonna happen to these characters, or if they're even going to be around. And if they're in talks to potentially show up in Kang Dynasty, well, maybe they will make it, but the stories change often. The odds are that this list is literally just a list from a whiteboard somewhere in an office, a conversation that was had, somebody was taking notes. They're throwing around names of who do they want to start writing into the story, who needs to be in the story, and who would we like to have to show up in the story, and what are the complications of making that happen. We've recently heard in a rumor that Kevin Feige is reaching out to everybody to try to get them involved in Secret Wars. And that's kind of how this story starts, is, well, who are we going to have involved, and then how do we write a story around that? So we're in the time frame for Kang where they're going to have the base of the story. It's going to be this versus this versus this, trying to accomplish this mission in this time frame for this reason. Now who are we going to have do all of that? And you can see in that lock storyline, it's the Fantastic Four, and it moves on from there to there to there. So from this point on this very long list, which just continues and continues and continues, we have a few other sections. We have more likely than not, questionable, and unlikely. The theory for most of these is going to be the same. How do they fit into the story? Are they going to stay alive in their storyline? And can we get the actor to play the role? And these might be lower down on the priority list for the storyline, but still, it's definitely fun to hear who has been toyed around with to join. It says, more likely than not, Wanda, Star-Lord, Nebula, Cosmo, Adam Warlock, Phyla Vale, Moon Knight, Scarlet Scarab, M'Baku, Namor, Valkyrie, Joaquin Torres, Man-Thing, Maria Hill, Ravonna Renslayer, and Sonya Falsworth. That is on the more likely than not list. On the questionable list, we have Blade, Black Knight, Jack Russell, Elsa Bloodstone, Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, U.S. Agent, The Hood, Ghost, Hawkeye, Clint Barton's Hawkeye, Love, Sif, Korg, Hercules, Nova, Wonder Man, Blue Marvel, Talos, Soren, Janet Van Dyne, Agatha Harkness, White Vision, Cersei, Phasos, Kingo, Druig, Thena, Makari, Eros, Pip the Troll, Billy Maximoff, Tommy Maximoff, Namora, Xiling, Elijah Bradley, Abigail Brand, TVA Librarian, Ki Hoon Khan, Casey, Scar, Sabra, White Tiger, Squadron Supreme, Steve Rogers. And then we have the unlikely list. So they've gone through these characters in the MCU and decided maybe there's not going to be room for them, their story's not going to work, their actor's not going to come back, etc., etc. And on this list of unlikely characters is Sharon Carter, Everett Ross, Jimmy Woo, Val, Zeus, Icarus, Ajax, Gilgamesh, Sprite, Punisher, Jessica Jones, Caddy Chen, Grandmaster, Deadpool, Hank Pym, Erishim, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, Groot, Kraglin, Eclipse, Abomination, Pepper Potts, Happy, Hogan. So, yes, pretty much every character in current MCU canon was named here, but that's because we have an unlikely list, and I want to mention something about the unlikely list, and this comes from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and could be a potential spoiler, so do with that as you may. However, on the unlikely list, we have characters Gamora, Drax, Rocket, Groot, and Kraglin. We also have Hank Pym, a good chunk of the Eternals, Sharon Carter, Jimmy Woo, Happy Hogan. I think that there might be a possibility with some of these characters that they're unlikely because they very well might die in upcoming movies leading up to the Kang Dynasty movie. So, for example, with the Guardians of the Galaxy, we know that this is James Gunn's last movie. We know that he's mentioned it's going to be a very sad movie that includes a lot of death and tragedy, and it's the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy as we know them. Now, we know some characters will live on and continue the story, but a lot of people believe that Rocket is going to end up dying, at the very least. We also know Dave Bautista's done playing Drax, which really puts his character on the chopping block and potentially could put him at risk of also dying. So we might be getting a little glimpse of the Guardians of the Galaxy who might be sacrificing themselves, dying, becoming casualties some way or another, here where it says Gamora, Drax, Rocket, Groot, and Kraglin, which would leave Star-Lord, Nebula, and that's pretty much it to carry on the story of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Very, very sad if that's true, but we've already been kind of mentally preparing for that since we've known Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was James Gunn's last movie, and it was mentioned by several actors who have read the script that this was going to be a rough one. So just a little side note, I think that some characters on this unlikely list might not be an option, which is what has made them unlikely. But this was a very long list of a lot of characters. I like this list because it does have a very agreeable structure. We're seeing characters who are being led to the Kang Dynasty locked in, and some characters who we'd like to see as questionable or possible or likely. And then there is a list of characters who just aren't going to be in the movie. It doesn't have every character like this is going to be Kang Dynasty, everybody. There is some reason and rhyme to the list that have been given, and I'm very curious to see whether or not this list ends up being real. Sadly, we'll probably never know if this list is accurate or not because Kang Dynasty is so far away that we'll never really get the final list at this point. It's fun to talk about potential characters, and this long list is definitely a good video for us all to have and to start getting our brains working as we're starting to get closer, very, very slightly closer to that date. We're now officially headed into Phase 5 since the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special has come out. But overall, I'm very excited for this new phase of Marvel, and this list, it got me excited. It got me pretty pumped for what will be coming in the future of Marvel with these massive Avengers movies. But let me know, who was not on this list? Who was in the wrong section? Who do you want to for sure see in Kang Dynasty? Who do you not need to see in Kang Dynasty? Share with me all of your very strong opinions in the comment section down below. As always, thank you to everybody who watched the very end of the video. If you found it helpful, useful, or entertaining, consider subscribing and turning on that notification bell. And I'll catch all of you guys on the next one right here on Cosmic Culture.